Hello everyone and welcome to Celebrating Cinema. It's me, Hugo Emmerzael. You're listening to a new series of ours called Future Frames, where we kind of go solo, so maybe it's like the Beatles after 1969. Anyway, this is a series where we celebrate emerging Dutch filmmakers whose frames we are excited to see more of and claim the screen, hence Future Frames. As hosts, we've each picked someone we would like to celebrate and speak with, and in this edition, you'll hear from 5 filmmakers and their personal relationships to cinema. This will be recorded in English, as you hear, with the intention of an international audience, wherever you are, who can access the talent here in the Netherlands. For my pick, I have chosen Amira Duynhouwer. Hello, woo! Who's one of the most vibrant, dedicated, fun, and prolific screenwriters and directors in the Netherlands as of late, with writers' credits on tons of series and projects, including some major stuff that has yet to be released or announced, so we're not going to talk too much about that. Besides working as well as a writer-director on short films, like the very short and sweet Kimya, the follow-up Betty, and the mid-length TV film Save It, amongst many, many other things. Amira, welcome to Celebrating Cinema Future Frames.
Oh my God, thanks. Stellar introduction, must be said.
Short and sweet, again, like some of the films that you made. So the idea of this series is very much, to go back to a bit of the roots where you came from, the place of love maybe that you found in film that gave you the fuel and the inspiration and the desire to chase this very strange career as a writer and director, because I think we can all acknowledge that it is a strange thing to do.
It's kind of a form of self-torture in some ways, but also a lot of fun, yeah.
And, we have a couple of questions that we ask everybody that we have invited in this series. And I think the first one is a pretty good one to kind of set the scene and get a little bit of insight of where you personally come from in this field of work, but also of passion. And it is a very simple one, but also a very hard one at the same time. And it's, what was your first memory of cinema/film? Kind of where did it all begin for you as a formative experience, maybe?
So I have a very specific memory of my first film. When I was, I think, 3 or 4 years old, my big sister, who's 8 years older than me, used to watch me. And so she would want to just chill and not babysit her little sister. And she would put on Matilda.
Jesus.
Do you remember this film?
Yes, of course.
And
how can you forget, if you're a young person, the scene where the boy has to eat the cake?
Oh, Bruce. Oh my God. And I swear I can dream this film. I think I watched that film, maybe I watched it back to back. Like I used to watch it, then she would take out the videotape, rewind it, put it in again. Like I would watch it back to back, day to day, week after week, until at some point, I think my mom caught me mouthing the words, and my sister was like freaked out. She was like, "Oh my God, I'm going to get in so much trouble." And so she hid the video. And then I didn't see it until I was like 8 or 9 again.
She thought she was going to get in trouble because she was a bad
babysitter.
Kind of like babysitter, yeah. Because she was just kind of like
letting me watch the film. Yeah. And it's funny because I really retained that behavior. I when I like something, I still watch it over and over. I still do that. But yeah, I saw Matilda, I think, like a couple 100 times for real. Yeah, so that movie is etched into my brain.
Can you like, what I always find, if you get obsessed about a thing, be it a film or, a song as well, I think songs can do that very easily as well. You always get obsessed with these like very specific beats, and you already anticipate them in your mind, and that's where the pleasure actually comes from, is 100%. Knowing that they come and then seeing them play out, and that's already enough, to get you there. Do you have those moments in Matilda that you were kind of like longing towards when you put on the film again?
Oh, that's such a good question. That's so true. Yes, 100%. I used to love like that middle part of the film where Matilda discovers her magic powers and where she like bakes the pancakes on her own, and she has that moment by herself. And they put that song On My Way on do you remember the soundtrack?
No, actually I don't, because I've seen that film a long time ago. So you have to paint a picture a little bit.
What is that song called? I think it's called On My Way. It's like what is it called? Like On My Way. Dun, 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 dun. It's like that. And she uses her magic powers and everything's amazing. And she's home alone and she's like living her best life. And I used to love that scene so much. And I used to love the beat where she would go to the library where she discovered books, and she would rent tons of books and have that little cart and like go to the library and rent all the books and come home and like lose herself in all those books. And I used to reenact that scene. I used to take all the books out of our house and I used to gather them in my room and I used to sit among them, and I couldn't even read yet. And I think I'm a really avid reader. I became a really avid reader as I grew up. And I really think that movie was part of why that happened.
That's very interesting because it raises like a couple of questions. One of them is like, were you already poised to be an avid reader, and did you recognize that bit of yourself in Matilda, or was Matilda the formative kind of like thing that pushed you over, that you became interested in books, right?
That's a great question.
What was earlier?
That's a great question. Funny is that like now I'm telling you this story. Kimia is about a girl who's home alone for the first time, and that formative scene. I never made this link, but that scene really reminds me of Kimia now. Well, I don't know. I mean, I think things go as they go. I don't know if the chicken or the egg came first, but yeah, I mean, before I could even read, I was pretending to read. So it was something I really desperately longed for, and as soon as it was offered to me in school, I picked it up so fast, and I was so good at it so quickly because I was desperate to do it. And I think I equated it to a superpower. I mean, that's what that film does, right? It tells you literature is a superpower and it's a way out. Not that I had a terrible childhood or anything, but it was quite loud in my house, and it was quite, it was a lot. And so it was a way for me to escape and retreat into this like magical place of my own, the way Matilda did.
It's so funny that you immediately put Kimia into the conversation, which is kind of your debut short film.
Yeah.
And like you said, that's about a girl who's home alone for the first time in kind of like maybe forever,
Yeah.
She's young and often, under the supervision of others, but due to circumstances, suddenly she's not. She's alone.
Yeah.
And then, what you said, you had like a kind of loud family home, right? And then the idea that suddenly there's silence in the house. You work with that very evocatively with that film, but then maybe it's interesting if we're already at that subject, what it was like to take those kind of like partially autobiographical childhood experiences and translate them to that film. What was it like to try to approximate that feeling or recreate it for a film?
It's so funny because I sometimes fall into this trap where I think I know myself, or I think I have some type of self-insight. And then I make something or I write something, and years later, something that's obvious to everyone watching becomes apparent to me. Like all of the films I've made so far are so autobiographical. They're so close to me in ways I don't even understand. And so it's making Kimia was really fun because my family was on the set, and it's about a Kenyan family. I mean, it's supposed to be, but. And I mean, it's completely autobiographical. Everything in there is directly from my youth or from some kind of feeling that I felt, So it's just a lot of fun. It makes it so much more easy and comfortable to create something because you're so sure about what it is. You don't have to guess at what you're telling the audience because there's only one person who knows what it was like, and it's you.
Yeah.
So it's deeply comforting.
You could say there's a different perspective to that. I'm not sure if you've seen The Fabelmans, the latest Steven Spielberg
movie. I haven't
movie.
Yet. No, I haven't.
I think you will love it, to be honest.
I mean, 100%.
It's him finally, because he made so many films that, deal with the themes that he had experienced throughout his youth as a young boy, coming from divorced parents and in a time when that was kind of a new thing, the dissolution of the all-American family and whatnot. And you see that in all of his films, right?
Yeah.
The kind of like broken families are literally in, from E.T. to Jurassic Park to War of the Worlds to, you name it.
Close Encounters, really.
Boom, there you have it, But he made an autobiographical film basically about his own upbringing and family. But there's also, maybe it's old age thing, but there's, I would say, also a little bit of anguish and melancholy in that as well.
Yeah.
And he very much kind of draws in the problem of responsibility. If you are going to take those stories, that are from you and your family.
Yeah.
You as a filmmaker set yourself apart from your family because you are taking the stories and showing them to the world.
Yeah.
What was that like for you?
It's becoming increasingly harder because, like I said, sometimes I think I know what I'm talking about and then I realize I don't. And delving into my own history for a lot of my work also means realizing that responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
And it means considering the alternative histories that have happened alongside yours. Because my sister will remember this differently and my mother will remember it differently. And so I try to commit myself to the idea that the film is fundamentally my perspective. And I think it's obvious that I really shoot them from that point of view.
Yeah.
And I try not to digress too much in whatever else is happening or other people's perspectives, because I really don't pretend to know what that was about. I think I did that in Betty a little bit, and it was terrible. And I learned that lesson. I really learned that lesson. I don't know what it's like, and I'll never know. That's just one thing that was really valuable to learn. Like you can't know what something was like for someone else. It's something we try to do as filmmakers. That's literally what we spend our lives doing, is like feeling empathy for these characters. But when there's someone so close to you, they become even further away. It's even harder to know because you're so biased, you know?
Yeah.
You're so biased about who they are and what they feel, and because you were there for all of it and you have your own feelings that are all tangled up. So it's more difficult to write someone close to you than to write a character that you've completely fictionalized. And so, the more I do it now and the more I write stories about my own past, the more I realize the closer I keep it to myself, the better. Because as soon as I digress into somebody else's history, I sort of lose the part of myself in the story that made me want to write it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. It's like you can write to draw something nearer, but you can also write to push something away.
100%.
And that push and pull is ultimately what produces a film, but that dynamic can be fraught or dangerous as well.
It happened in Save It, I think. I wrote Save It and I wrote a version of it. And Robert Alberdingtime was my coach on that film. And the movie was about something that actually happened to me. And it was really hard to write about. It was really, really difficult. Because that's a film where definitely two perspectives are present.
Yeah.
And I was writing that film and he read it and he just, I love him so much. He went, "Oh, well, this is terribly generic. I mean, why would you even put this in?"
And you're like, "But I lived it."
No, but the funny part was I didn't write anything that I lived. I was too scared. I didn't want to come that close to the thing. So I was pushing, like you just said.
Yeah.
I was really pushing. And so I would write something like, "Oh, there's a scene where someone gets bad news." And I would write the most generic, like every movie you've ever seen type of way of writing that. And then he would be like, "I've seen this scene 100 times. I could have written this scene. Why would you?" And he would push me to go back and he would be like, "What happened to you? How did that feel? What did that look like? What did that smell like? Get specific and, remember it and be there and have it hurt." And I remember at the end of that film going, "Okay, well, I'll never do that again." And he's like, "Yeah, you will."
Yeah.
And
That's great advice though. Have it hurt, because
it all hurts. That's what I meant by like it's self-torture. Like if you really want to write a good story, it'll hurt because it's always going to come close to something that you truly feel or have felt or should feel. And it's always something that you're running away from. In my case, that's how I started writing. Like I started writing to understand what I was feeling or what I was thinking, to make sense of things. And I still do. And now I do it to get paid, so now I have to do it in a rush.
This is what's kind of crazy for me about this profession, but maybe about, the pursuit of making art in general, is to go and look for those confrontational moments within yourself. It is, for me, it's almost like a disease, but in a good way. Like it's a blessing and a curse, you could say, right? And what I'm always interested in is, why do you chase it, right? That's ultimately, I think, an underlying idea or question of this series as well, but also of celebrating cinema in general, is like, how do you do it? How do you even, manage to think, I'm just going to take all the pain and all the kind of like difficult moments in my life and turn them into art? And one question that I have that kind of is related to the first big one is, well, so you have your formative film moments, right? But what are some of the moments where you kind of feel that desire like building up becoming more prominent that you actually maybe want to pursue working in film, that you want to tell those stories? Can you kind of like go back and try to pinpoint where you felt like, I might want to be a director?
Well, it's a funny question because I never planned on being a director. I'm always very jealous of people who figured this out when they were like 9 or 10 or whatever, and had Super 8 cameras and, all those stories. I'm so jealous. That sounds so
like
cool.
The little Steven Spielberg.
100%.
Yeah.
Like there's so many people out there who were like, yeah, I used to have a VCR or whatever. I wasn't like that at all. And I used to want to be a writer because that was the closest thing. I had a pen, I had a paper, I could do that. That seemed,
and you were obsessed with books.
Yeah, it seemed viable to me. But I was raised pretty, we weren't rich. So it wasn't a thing that I felt I should want because writers are poor.
Yeah.
And so it was always like a thing in the back of my mind where I was like, yeah, if I could, I would be a writer. But of course not. Only a special few people get to be a writer. So that in essentially was like how I approached film. Film to me was so abstract, so far away. How I got to film school was also so random. I went with a friend and I sort of applied on a whim, and it was either that or make pasta in Italy for a year, because I wanted to learn how to cook. I didn't dare to dream that type of dream, right?
Yeah.
I thought I should be a lawyer or do something that seemed sensible to me. And so I think I was about in my 3rd year when I started taking film seriously. And it was because I had this teacher, Willem Bos.
You were in your 3rd year of film studies when you started taking film seriously.
Yeah.
Just for clarification.
Yeah. That sounds terrible. I'm sorry.
No. I mean, school is school,
No, yeah, but it's a wonderful school, but I just really wasn't there with my mind. I was working a lot and I was partying a lot and I was out, and I just figured I was going to open my own restaurant one day. I figured that was what I was going to do, and that this film thing, they tell you like 1 in 100 succeeds, 1 in a million succeeds. And so I just figured I wasn't going to be that.
That's pretty bad advice as well, I would say.
Yeah, but it's also, I think it's meant to motivate you and be like, you made it this far, push on, right? And I think it's also good that they give that advice because I feel like it's true. Not a lot of people succeed in this business. It's hard. It takes a lot of hard work, but it also takes luck, it takes dedication, it takes all this stuff, and not everyone makes it, and it's that sucks, and you should know about that, I think. Anyway, I had this teacher, his name was Willem. He was amazing, and he had all this fresh energy. Like all the teachers were quite serious, and I felt like, oh, I suck and whatever. I did kind of suck, but you didn't have to tell me that. And Willem was just really fun and straightforward, and he was just like, he would judge something by saying it works, or he would say it doesn't work, and he wouldn't be like sentimental or nitpicky. He would just say this works, and if it didn't, he would just say start over, it doesn't work. And I really liked that approach, and I really responded to that, and I sort of got closer to him and stuck around with him, and he hired me to be his assistant director on his first feature. And I was on that set and I saw him do it, and it just snapped. It became an option. He was this guy that I knew who was normal, who was smart, who was kind of shared the same ideals as me, and he was shooting this amazing film.
And that's Hiernamaals, right?
That's Hiernamaals.
What's the international title of that? Like
Afterlife, yeah. And he did that, and he was so good, and the movie was amazing.
Such a sweet film as well.
The film is
very autobiographical.
The film is very autobiographical. It's about his mom, and
Yeah.
I mean, it was beautiful. Just he's a friend of mine, and watching him bring that story to life with the integrity and the artistry that he did. Oh, it was amazing. It was magic. Every day on that set was magic, and it was just the best experience. And I walked away from that set thinking, if I can do this with my life in any possible way, then this is what I want to do. And so then I really started, I went for it. I quit those jobs that I was doing on the side, and I started, really committing to becoming a filmmaker. But I don't think it would have happened if I hadn't done that film.
And what made you decide to apply to film school? Were you like inspired by other films, or was it just kind of an adventurous option? I
had been bumming around for about 3 years. I'd been working in restaurants full time. I'd started to learn how to cook. So I was really on the path to become a cook. And a friend of mine who, when I was very little, he used to be a friend of my sister's. he
Your 8-year older sister who
yeah
didn't babysit you and
yeah,
gave you Matilda.
I knew him when I was like 10, 12.
Mm-hmm.
And at that age, he was 20 or so. And he used to do slam poetry. And I would write little poems at school, like during class. And he would read them sometimes because he was like, you know, he would like to inspire me and be like, oh, look, you write poetry. That's so great. In this cool older brother type of way.
Yeah.
And so he used to tag me along. He used to take me along to poetry slams. And so because of him, I started doing that at a very young age. I started performing. God, if I think about that now, that's very embarrassing. But, you know, that was really cool of him. And so he was, I think, 27 and I was, I think, 20. And he went, I want to go to film school. And I'm kind of embarrassed because I feel like I'm old to do this. So come to the, what do you call it? The open day.
Yeah.
Come check it out with me and just, we'll pretend it's for you. And I was like, sure.
You're a chaperone for that.
Yeah, but I had also started, like, I'd started law and quit it. I'd started philosophy and quit it. I'd started political science and quit it. I'd started so many like degree paths and quit them all.
Philosophy, I could see you doing.
I could have done all of this.
Yeah, but philosophy makes sense more than law or political science.
No, but I love like political science. Like, it's so interesting. I used to really want to be a diplomat. Anyway, so I started all this stuff. I kept quitting, and everybody around me was kind of getting worried because I used to be the smart kid in my family. You know, I used to be the studious, you know, reads a lot, like eats books for breakfast type of girl.
And suddenly you're the indecisive, not really studying person, only working and partying.
Suddenly I was this bar girl. So everyone around me was kind of like, we need to get her back straight. And so I went to this film school and I walked in, and I really can't explain it. It was just a feeling. It was a feeling that came over me. I walked into that building and I sort of felt like it was the first place, apart from that restaurant I had spent the last 3 years in, that I wanted to be. I just walked in that building and I figured, well, if this is a place where I'll spend 4 years, that's not a bad thing. That's all. It was really just a feeling. So I applied. I applied for screenwriting because it was all this stuff that I already had.
Pen and a paper, interesting words.
Yeah, I already had that stuff. You know, I had poems lying around. I had little short stories writing. I'd never stopped writing. I love writing. I'd never stopped doing it. So I had all this stuff. I just figured, if it doesn't take that much work, why not just apply and we'll see. I'll never get in anyway. And then I got in. So that was kind of that. But it was kind of in the most non-committal way I could possibly do it.
I love that. I mean, it's refreshing as well, because what you said, it would have been very luxurious if you were 9 and you had a Super 8 camera and you know that you wanted to be the next Steven Spielberg. But it's also kind of to fall into a thing or land on a path and then just go for it is maybe even a better way to do it, because then you don't have to uphold that pressure of like, oh, but my 9-year-old self wanted me to become this, right? You don't
100%.
have that pretension that you need to become this.
It's so funny. It really sets you apart. Like when you do that, when you go to that school, it's just 100 people in a year, under 100 people, you know, and they're all, most of them are, you know, would kill to be there. Or, you know, they applied one time, like twice, 3 times. So it really does set you apart in the sense that I felt bad for most of the time being so casual about it and not wanting it as much as they did. Because all your teachers will tell you, like, this is a privileged position you are in, which you are. But I don't think I was non-committal because I didn't care. I think I was non-committal because I was really afraid that this was going to be something I would want and would not be able to get. So I think now, looking back, I can see where that came from. It was just a fear of failure, I think.
When you worked on Afterlife on the set of Willem Bos's film as assistant director, how did that kind of reshape your expectations of what you wanted to do? Because you said that every day on set was magical and that you saw a friend turning his personal life into artistry, right?
Yeah.
That's a pretty high bar for working in film as well, especially in the Netherlands, because let's be frank, it's quite hard to make stuff here that is so personal and also, you know, have enough pleasure on set, because you don't have that many shooting days often because of budgetary constraints.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty high bar. Like if that's your expectations of what you can do as a director in the Netherlands as well, how did that shape what you wanted to do, and also how did you manage to actualize some of those things as well, maybe?
Well, yeah, it was funny. Like, it wasn't even like it was that like magical. You know what I mean? It was to me. It was because I've never been on a set, but it was just a set. Like now, when I go on a set, they're all there. It's a comfortable place that I know and recognize. But back then, it was like there's a camera and it's huge, and there's all these people, and they all know what to do, and they're all in lockstep. And it's how do they all know? And the only place I'd ever known that felt that way was a kitchen, where everybody knows their job and everybody works together. But you know, a kitchen has maybe 6 chefs working towards one purpose, which is the most beautiful thing I'd known. A set has 50 working towards one concentrated purpose. And it's wild, you know. We shot this scene where the protagonist, who's like I think 14 or 15, she's basically killed herself to go to heaven to see her mom. And she arrives in heaven, and her mom is there waiting for her. And the entire set just went silent and hushed, and everyone was just crying, and I was crying, and Willem was crying. It was the most beautiful thing, right? Because he, for a second, he kind of brought his mom to life, right? And there's just nothing like that. It's crazy. Like that just changes you. Like if you can touch on a moment like that, even if it's just for like 10 seconds, if you can make 50 people concentrate all of their focus and all of their talent for that, you know, that's just worth it in any case, you know? And I feel like you can really see that in the film, and it's just a magical thing to witness, you know, how all these technical people read a script and decide to do that and decide to like make something like that together.
Because everybody also speaks a different language. Everybody has their own kind of experience that they have to bring to the table and their own considerations if they want to work on this film.
Yeah. And just to see what people, you know, people who work in film are kind of weird, you know, they're kind of carnival people. They travel from set to set and they work crazy hours and they do hard stuff. And, you know, I think the thing that binds them is that they find that story worth it. They find that moment of connection that film offers so worth it. And it's so cool to see, right? Like, you know, there's a focus puller and there's a DOP and there's a sound man and there's a catering van, and all of these people come together because they hope that in one of these 28 shooting days, there will be that hushed moment, that magic, that they don't even expect the magic, but if it's there, that's what they do it for. And that's what they'll remember. I think anybody you speak to who was on that film will remember this exact moment. And that's what movies are about, right?
When you worked on Kimya, you're the director and you wrote the film as well.
Yeah.
How much different is that? But also kind of like, do you feel like you actively need to pursue those things, or do you hope that they will just happen, those magic moments, those hushed, silenced moments?
No, I don't think you can actively pursue them. They hit you. They hit you hard. I don't think anybody pursues them. I think it just happens when everything is right. When you just feel that something is real and you can feel that a moment is authentic.
Did you have the privilege of experiencing that with the stuff that you wrote yourself and directed as well?
I did. It was crazy. I had it for I think the first time I really felt that was on Save It. And I remember it was I think it was our 5th day or 6th day in a row. We were quite tired. We were quite rushed and we were having a bad morning. We were shooting something that was just not panning out the way we wanted it to. And so it was taking a lot of time. And we had to rush that shot and we had to quickly rehearse the next shot, go to lunch, shoot it. And so that rehearsal was quite like, all right, we're going to rehearse scene 21, let's go. And so they set up the rehearsal and they're like, Amira, run to the opposite side of the street so you can watch. All right, here's your headset, blah, 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 put it on, let's go, camera ready, sound ready, go, go, go. And so I put on the headset. I'm quite annoyed because this last shot took so long. I'm quite, you know, like, ugh, right, you know, like that. And so I put on the headset and I look at the monitor and this scene starts unfolding in front of me. And it's the scene where the protagonist hears her best friend has just passed away. And I've lived this moment, right? And it's something about it hits home in a way that I had no idea. I couldn't see it coming at all. It was like my life sucked me back 10 years into a moment I'd forgotten happened. And I'd forgotten I'd written it down like that, and I'd just forgotten all about it. I'd written that scene 6 months ago. I don't know, and it happened, and she started crying in the scene, and oh man, it was crazy. It hit me like a sledgehammer, and I think I hid in a light van for all of lunch, and the entire crew sort of like, I think they found me, or they were looking for me. I think one person found me. I think my DOP found me. And I sort of tried to stop crying. I was like, I have to shoot this scene. This is ridiculous. So I tried to calm myself down, but I think most people saw me and sort of didn't say. I think they sort of spotted me breaking down. And so we came back. I was like, I'd composed myself. I was like, all right, guys, we're going to shoot this scene. I was like in full director mode. And the cameras go on. It's not a rehearsal. Everything is in perfect, unison. It all works perfectly. The light is brilliant. And the camera goes off, and I'm crying. And the DOP her tears are streaming down her face. The actress is crying. The makeup lady is crying. Like everybody on set was crying, and it hit them because they sort of realized the reality of the situation.
Why are we actually here?
Yeah. What's the story that we're telling, and whose story are we telling? And we'd been together for a while now, so they cared about me. We cared about each other. And so it was a crazy moment. Like the entire set was just wiped out. It was insane. I'd never seen anything like it. It was a wild scene to shoot. So that was crazy.
It's giving me goosebumps while you're explaining it to me.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was really a crazy moment. And,
It's funny because, in Celebrating Cinema, except for Kiriko, who's one of our co-hosts, and she's also a filmmaker, but most of us don't work on sets, we don't make films. But we get many of these moments in a different way as spectators, There is an aspect and that we often touch upon in the podcast about how film evokes these strong emotions in the people that watch them as well. And we've often talked about the films that made us cry, or the films that drew out all of these personal connections that we felt with the material, with either the story or just the way somebody acted, or just a particular beat or moment or feeling or texture. There's so many ways that a film can draw out a very strong response in its audience. And, there's somehow those things are connected with the making now. That becomes very apparent because it's all stories, right? But I'm wondering how you kind of, from the other side, because making is one thing, but then seeing a finished film, right, is another thing. And I'm wondering, do you have those strong responses as well with film when you watch them? And maybe it would be interesting to put some of those films on the table as well. Like, for instance, in your kind of like more adult life, what were some films that really got to you on this like visceral, emotional level that made you understand what it is that you're doing as well? Like, why are we making films? Why are we watching them?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, I get into like so many films do that for me though. Like I really commit emotionally to pictures. I mean, so many things. I had it the other day. I went to Lucas Don's Close, and it's so funny because his film feels so close to mine, like the story. And so I had it there. I was like,
you mean To Save It?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I think I cried for like 90% of that film. It was so intense. But like, I have it with Gladiator. I have it with The West Wing. I have it with, I have it with everything. If it's a good story, it just touches me. And it really makes me realize, like, I used to have it when I was little, and I used to go to Marvel films, like good Marvel. Remember the good ones?
Yeah, the ones like
the amazing Marvel films, the amazing DC films. Like, I used to have it with that stuff. I used to walk out of the theater feeling like, oh my God, like life can be conquered,
I remember seeing The Dark Knight Rises and being like, this film is about so much, and it doesn't do it necessarily well, but it does it with so much conviction that it kind of touches me.
The Dark Knight trilogy for me, like, was such a formative thing. Was like a life changer, and like because of the way it made you feel, right? You walked out of the theater and you were just like, let's get it.
Things are big and complex, but they all come together in the struggle between this person and society and the other person.
Absolutely. It's like, it's good and evil, and it's like, and I love films that do that. I love films that make you feel like life is about trying. I love films that are archaically about the struggle between good and bad, and And I love films that explore the space in between. I mean, I watched There Will Be Blood. I think I watched that when I just started film school. I was late to the game. That movie was like, oh, that changed my life, man. That movie like pivoted me all the way. I was like, that's what a film should be. It should be this and only this.
Such a great film.
Right?
Yeah.
Like seriously, that the first 10 minutes of that film should be put in a museum, right? It's crazy.
It's incredible.
Yeah. So stuff like that. Like I really love that, the stuff about films that are about big things and big feelings and, big events. I love that. I really do.
You're going to love The Fabelmans.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm really excited.
And that's connected. It's a personal thing because when I saw Fabelmans, it was on the 1st of January this year. And, that gets you in a little reflexive mood. And it's not my story, but there's, I think you'll like that as well. What Spielberg is very good at is taking familiar things that are like often done, are so familiar that they can be presented as a cliche or just only as the trope, and then having such distinct ways of shooting it and finding the right visual language to convey it that it feels as if you're witnessing or kind of experiencing those things for the first time.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh man.
And that entire film is just that, about his own life.
I love that.
And there's just one shot where his grandma of the protagonist, who's clearly modeled after teenage Steven Spielberg, she passes away. So it's this scene in a hospital room that you've seen a zillion times, somebody lying on their deathbed, a machine that has that kind of like beeping thing with the line, whatever.
Yeah.
I don't even know what it's called. You've seen that scene a million times.
Yeah.
And then this extreme close-up on her pulsating, what is it?
Her vein. Yeah.
That's kind of really very visibly pulsating in the neck and then stops beating. And it's just done in a way, just the passing of somebody close to you that you've never seen somehow before, texturally or something. And I'm wondering, to turn it into a question, if you're dealing with stuff also from your own life or stuff that maybe becomes universal, losing dear ones, growing up, coming of age things.
Yeah.
There's writing it, but there's also visually conveying it.
Yeah.
What do you try to aspire to as a filmmaker as well in finding the right visuals or the right images or the right language almost to convey that?
Oh, that's such a good question. It's so funny because when I did Kimia, I had no idea what directing was, right? I just sort of like fell into that. And I owe a lot to my DOP, Dionne, back then, Dionne Katz, who sort of like really went, like as if I was a kid, went through it with me, through what visual image is. And obsessive as I am, I sort of dove into that from that moment on. I felt so insecure about not understanding this art of visual language that I sort of read all those books about, photography, and I got a lot of photography books, and I sort of started dissecting things by their images. And I realized, I realize it more and more, I think it's about confidence in the sense that, not to name drop here, but I was reading Akira Kurosawa's biography, which was super inspiring. And I've been thinking about this a lot because in the past 2 years, I've worked so much. It's about trusting that you have an interesting take. And it's about learning how to tell a story. And I think that if you can write a script that is very compelling, and if you can write a script that is specific and well structured, and if you can tell a story well, directing really isn't that hard. No, I mean, it shouldn't be, but like visually, you already write an image. A scene should already have images in it, right? And for instance, now I'm writing a film, and the film opens with a sex scene. And it's so specific and it's so close. And it's the way, it's like your own imagining of love, right? The way, to bring back Lucas Dont, like the way he captures those two boys in bed, the way, have you seen it?
I've seen it.
So they're in bed together, right?
I have to be clear that I'm less enthusiastic about the film.
No, I understand. But it's like, there was some stuff in it that I thought was really well done. Like I thought them lying in bed in the first few scenes, and then one boy sort of hushes the other boy with his breath. Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was a beautiful way to show love. You don't have to tell me that they're in love with each other. You've just told me, right?
Yeah.
Because of the way he calms him down, the way he knows that he's having a hard moment and he knows how to manage that moment and he's willing to manage that moment. That's an image of love to me. And that's really what it is. Like, I used to be so insecure about this thing, about how to turn something into a compelling image. And I realized that you already do. When you write something in a certain way, you zoom in on a thing. Like when Steven Spielberg thinks about his dying grandmother, he remembers that vein. He remembers, I was sitting there and I was looking at that vein and I was looking at it pulsing and it was blue and it was pale and it was see-through and I remember it and it was gross, but it was also interesting and it was, you know what I mean?
That's
and that's
scene.
an image.
You got it. You haven't seen the movie yet.
No,
that's
but
the scene.
You know, but that's how a good script has those moments. It doesn't have an old lady dying in a hospital room. It has a vein. It has, I remember that vein. That's what the scene is, you know? And that's what I mean with go where it hurts. Most of the time when you finish a script and it's good, you know it's good because it's an accumulation of those moments. And you don't even have to think about how you're going to visualize them because you've already done it. And the only thing that's left is to bring someone else in. And if your script is good enough, they're going to read it and they're going to see what you saw. They're going to see the images you saw and they're going to use their talent to bring them to life. And I think the longer I do this, the more I trust that will work out.
You know, what always very much intrigues me about your career is that you have such a clear vision of what you can do for the projects that you instigate yourself, that are very close to your heart. But you're like insanely prolific and productive, working like in writers' rooms, working on TV series for a whole slew of like television networks or, you know, streaming platforms, working on projects that wildly vary in where you would put them on the, you know, commercial versus so-called art house axis. You know, there's like omnivorous aspect to the way that you approach this whole industry. And I wanted to ask, how do you balance those things, I guess, but also how do you somehow give a little bit of yourself to every one of those projects, even ones that are maybe, you know, a bit more gun for hire. About
drug lords,
yeah, for instance, or a bit further removed from your own personal experiences.
It's funny you asked this. I was thinking about this a lot this week because I was having lunch with a friend this weekend and I hadn't seen him in a while. And he goes, right, so what are you doing? And I went, what do you mean? And he goes, with your career. I mean, you're doing a theater. I'm directing a play right now. He goes, you're directing a play and it's like Moliere and it's comedy, but you're also doing a crime show about high finance, but you're also researching something about Kurosawa, and you're also like, what are you doing? Where's your career going? Are you focused?
Yeah,
are you
what's
focused
the clarity?
Enough? What's your path? Because I feel like you're doing everything, and I feel like you're doing all these different things. And where's your focus? And are you going to get there? And I felt so reprimanded. I felt so reprimanded. I felt so defensive. I felt so like, am I doing it wrong? Am I messing up my career? Am I not focused? And I just I took this question to heart. And it's not the first time someone's asked it. And then I thought about it and I thought really about what I do. And, you know, a story is a story and it really is the same to me. And doing a play, doing Moliere, Kurosawa, doing a series that's about drugs and sort of Gomorrah-like, it is the same thing to me. And the longer I do it, the more it becomes the same thing. The way, you know, the way religion is the same thing to me. The way when I read the Quran and when I read the Bible, they are similar to me. The way, you know, archaic stories, mythology are the same to me. The way Shakespeare and the Odyssey have a lot of places where they, you know, touch each other. Like, you learn how to tell a story, and then you sort of just, you know, you become able to tell any kind of story. And that's what I do. That's why I do all this stuff. That's why I like to do crime. That's why I like to do comedy. That's why I like to do everything. Because to me, it's about, you know, learning how to tell a story. And if I can do that in any way, shape, or form, if I find that security, then it'll help me in, writing this debut that I'm writing right now, that debut is so different from anything that I'm writing for hire.
Yeah.
But it's the same. You have to be sharp. You have to have a begin, a middle, and an end. You have to be quick. Think of images. You have to be structured. And I've done 5 big series in the past year.
Yeah.
You can't believe like how quick I've become at seeing structure, like how quickly I can analyze what the structure of a series is or what it needs or what it's missing. How a movie is a premise and a series is a question, a conflict. And when you start to see all that, it's like seeing the code behind something, and it's all the same thing.
But honest question, maybe a tough one. Don't you think that can be productive for a while, and then it will be necessary for you to unlearn those things
100%,
as well?
100%. I totally see it that way. But that's the thing. Like, I graduated 3-4 years ago.
That's insane, by the way, to imagine. That is only like
honestly,
so
but
not
like,
so long ago.
The way a lawyer, the way someone who does law school doesn't just graduate and become a lawyer. I see it the same way for myself. Like, I have no idea what I'm doing most of the time. No, seriously. Like, I don't know. And that made me, like, I'm the type of person who doesn't do well with failure.
Yeah.
I'm really afraid to fail. So the only thing I know how to do is to commit and sort of learn everything there is to learn and then try. And so, you can see it in my films. Like, Save It is a mile away from Keep Me Out.
Yeah.
And you can see it in like the first series I ever wrote and the one I just wrote. Like, there's so much space between them in quality and in what I know now. And it's because I just do it a lot. I consider myself to still be a student. And I consider myself to forever be a student of film, because you'll never be done learning. But I don't feel like I should lock myself up in a room and spend a year on a script, because I don't feel like that'll bring me anywhere. I feel like I should study and be under great writers like I have been for the past year. I've been under Pieter Bart Korthuis and Oscar van Woensel and Willem Bos and like all these great showrunners. And I feel like I should be close to them and learning from them. Like, I just started working with Jim Taihutu. Like, he's amazing. And
Jim Taihutu, by the way, is probably one of my favorite working directors in the Netherlands.
Watching
I think
him, like,
when he has the means and the focus, on his stories, he goes for it in a way that I don't see anybody else going for it.
100%. And that's what I'm doing right now. Like, I feel like I'm in a kind of apprenticeship with him. You know what I mean? And I feel really lucky that I get to work with him and that I get to watch him do what he does, like that I get to be close to his process and sort of be a part of that. And I feel like how I learn is I just copy something for a while. I get into someone's head, I copy it, and then I'll unlearn it later. But it really helps me ahead to see how someone else does it.
This is a question that we ask to all the directors that we invited in the series, but I'm very grateful that you already kind of like gave me the connection to go there. But it's what's some of the best advice that you've been told by the people that you work with and look up to? A thing that you've really taken to heart, but also one that you specifically want to pass along right here on mic. This
one is not going to be good for passing it along.
Okay,
but it's
good for you. Then.
But this is the one I took to heart most. So I once asked Willem Bos, who I just wrote a series with, how do you do it? Like, you're so good and you're so consistently good. And he's just amazing. Like, seriously, like, he'll turn a script in or he'll rewrite something I wrote and he'll just make it 50% better. Like, not 10. I'm not even kidding. 50. Like, he's amazing. And so I asked him, I was like, how are you doing this? And he's doing it in like he'll do it in a day. He'll do it in 2 hours. It's wild.
Notoriously productive. And
wild. And so he's like, and he's notoriously underestimated. Like, like, it's insane how good he is. So he just went, just try not to suck. And I know it sounds ridiculous, but in that moment, I totally understood what he meant. Like, I really understood. I was like, because there is a part of that comes into play. Like, if you put your mind to it, if you really try to write something good, you will. You can write that hospital scene that you just discussed, like, from the classic hospital bullshit point of view. You can also write the vein scene. Yeah. And what it means, like, try not to suck, it means focus. Try to write the vein scene. And I really get what he means by that. So that's really good advice. And I think the other advice is that every writer I've ever worked with has told me to do what I love and don't do stuff I hate. And if I hate it, stop doing it immediately. And that's good advice too. I mean, it is an art form. Don't underestimate that. You'll run out if you do stuff you hate quickly.
You need to protect your creative capacities for the stuff that you actually want to invest it in.
You'll just suck.
Yeah.
If you do something you don't like, if you do something your heart is not in, if you do something that isn't even the slightest bit personal to you, and personal can mean like there's a character that collects stamps in the show and you collect stamps. Like that can even be your in, but there has to be an in. And if you don't have an in, don't do it. And I think every writer I've ever worked with has told me to stay away from that type of stuff.
Maybe it's a final question, and it's one that you've probably answered before, but considering the fact that you would almost not be a filmmaker but a chef, there must be more connections or overlaps between the world of cooking and cuisine and the world of filmmaking and cinema, except for the fact that there's 7 people in the kitchen working for one thing and 50 people on the set working for one thing.
Oh my God,
but I'm
completely.
wondering what have been some of the overlaps that you found between the two, or what from your experience of working in a kitchen have you taken to becoming a director as well?
Ooh, it's the same thing to me, honestly. Like the the kitchen and the set and is exactly the same thing to me. I think first of all, the striving for perfection, striving to make something as good as it can possibly be, and be, willing to risk burns and chopping your finger off and all that stuff. There's this sense of war in film and in the kitchen that is really similar. In the kitchen, when service starts, it's war, right? And that's why you and all your, colleagues are so tight, because it's war. Yeah. It's you versus the guest. Let's go. Yeah. We're gonna make it through this night, and we're gonna do the best we can. And that's a really steady level of commitment. I mean, people don't go to their office jobs with that mentality. They just don't. It's really different. And the film set has the same vibe. People are there, 7 a.m. sharp. It's war. Yeah. We're going to go out today, and I don't care if you're sick. You wouldn't call in sick. You just wouldn't, unless you're dying. And that's the same thing in the kitchen. You just wouldn't. And so I love that's exactly the same feeling. The sense of focus, creating something beautiful. Every time, every shot, every scene, everything should be beautiful. Every plate, it's all the same type thing. And I think the deeper sense of what cooking is. I mean, cooking is loving someone, and cooking is telling a story. It's a tradition, A dish tells you something about a people, and a dish tells you something about a place and a time. A pasta from Puglia will tell you how much money those people had to spend. And it will tell you what the weather was, and it will tell you what time they ate. And, a curry will tell you the same thing. It'll tell you what grew close. It'll tell you, are they vegan? Are they not? What religion did they practice? And it's almost like an oral tradition, as it were. It's a way to tell a story. It's a way to keep something alive and bind people. And that's exactly what a film is.
I love that. That's beautiful. Thank you. Okay, then final question.
Shoot.
What's a thing, a film or a book or another work of art that's been on your mind a lot lately, for whatever reason, that you maybe want to share or tell something about?
What's been on my mind a lot lately? I think that book I just read, the biography of Akira Kurosawa, it really made a deep impression on me. I don't know why. Something about it really hit home. So yeah, I think that. Why, I don't really know. I think because he's such a good filmmaker, and because he grew up in this really weird time in Japan. It's funny, he strikes me as a very strict soul, he's quite strict about himself, and I recognize a lot of that stuff. I'm also quite strict for myself, and he doesn't want to over embellish himself in the book. He's hammering on that the whole time. He's like, I don't want to pretend like I'm something I'm not. He's very impressive, and he should know that, but whatever. But there was this one scene in the book that really hit home for me, where I think he's in his 20s, and he's also bumming around, very recognizable. He hasn't become a director yet. He hasn't realized that that's where he wants to go. And he's bumming around, and he moves in with his brother. And his brother is what do you call it? The silent movie narrator.
Yeah, he's like an explicateur, as we call it.
Yeah, he's that. And the art is dying, but for the moment, his brother is quite a famous guy. And he says, my brother lived in this kind of shady, neighborhood in this type of building where all these people live together, right? Where they all just have one room and everybody walks into each other's houses and all that stuff. And he couldn't understand why his brother lived in such a place. And then he said, after a while, I started to understand why my brother lived in such a place, because they would bring each other food and everybody would help each other, and I would hear people singing from their windows, and it was lovely. We lived as a community and it was beautiful and everybody helped each other. Then his brother died. The explicateur job sort of vanished with the first sound films, and his brother got really depressed and he killed himself. And then he had this final note on that neighborhood, and he said, I realized at some point that there were things happening there that I couldn't see. So at first it seemed shady to him, or poor. Then he sort of started to appreciate the community of it all, and he started to see the beauty of it. And then he realized that under that beauty, under that apparent normalness, was a deep darkness. He said there was a neighbor who used to torture her daughter. She used to tie her up to the radiator. Sorry to end on this very depressing note. And beat her. And I would go and I would try to release her when her mom left. And the girl would say, "Are you crazy? Tie me back up. She'll do it again if she finds me untied." And he said, and I realized that under all this normal stuff, under the most normal people, because her mom was this lovely woman, there's always some type of darkness to be found. So under his own brother and in himself. And he said, almost all of my characters have this darkness in them, because I feel like humanity is about that type of duality. And I thought it was just, it's still with me, because it was the most, true thing I've read in a really long time. And he came to it in such a childlike way, right?
It's incredible. This is an incredible scene.
Yeah. Yeah. So that book really stuck with me. That was really, it made a mark on me.
Well, on that happy note.
Torture. No.
No, I like that. I think it's, that's what, like you say, find the place where it hurts as well, right?
More like in the sense that I find it so funny that in the end, when you delve deeper into things, they all turn out to be, everything is about good and evil. You know what I mean? Everything is about these two, this light and this dark and the thing in between. And I feel like that's where filmmakers live.
That is a beautiful end. Amira, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you also for listening to Celebrating Cinema series Future Frames. Make sure to listen to the rest of the crew's conversations, which are just as fascinating as this one. Please leave a review on whichever platform you listen to, and share so more people can discover both us and our future frame makers. Feel free also to send any questions and suggestions to celebratingcinema at lab111 and follow us at lab111 on Instagram. And as always, we provide show notes, including all the films mentioned and books, and links to the filmmaker's work at celebratingcinema.com. This was a Lab 111 production, edited and produced by Elliot Bloom and Yvonne Gissi, with music from Hugo Emmerzael and artwork by Studio FFF. Thank you for listening.